Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion once more, the setting of the Pathfinder role-playing game system? If you are, grab my hand. I am your host and guide here at Tian Xia of Dracovin. I'm going to open up a gateway through the universe, the multiverse, over to Golarion to take you there, show you some stuff, teach you along the way. A little bit of a tip here before we leave, like subscribing, ringing the bell, and leaving me a comment on our topic today, and stuff about that. That would be really great. Anyway, Shanguang, the Great Desert, and the Wall of Heaven await us, the continent of Tian Xia. If you are ready, my hand is outstretched, the portal is open, we are going. Tian Xia awaits! Well, now that we've arrived in the Great Desert, beware the great beasts here. My magics and powers can keep the Kaiju that rule this place at bay, and the great spirits and creatures of the Wall of Heaven from approaching us. But if you wander too far, those protections won't. So please, follow me. Let us begin with what may other sources you may have. I like to talk about the book sources that I used for the information I learned about, but also like to share with you other sources, things that you might want to read. Dragon Empire's Gazetteer, Tian Xia World Guide, that's the big one I always use. And in this case, Fist of the Ruby Phoenix, the Ready Fight book, talks a lot about Kaiju, and especially those from the Wall of Heaven. Hey! The Kaiju in general, and since they are an integral part of this entire thing, you can't really read them. So the Wall of Heaven, and Shanguang. Well, it's a massive mountain range that covers the western coast of Tian Xia, and the desert that's connected. What is here? People? Creatures? Dragons, geniekins, humans, yakshas, yetis. Yetis are a big part of it here. There are a lot of beings that do live here. There are powerful creatures that control areas and mountains within the Wall of Heaven. There are ancient lost floating cities, one of them, that remains here. There's a lot to find. And of course, the Kaiju that live in this very inhospitable, monster-filled place where you can be alone. That is the Wall of Heaven. So there are people here. There's no real government. Each tribe or nomad group that lives here is on their own. They might have connections with some of the other groups, but they are, in the end, on their own. Doesn't mean you might not see others. You might have roots that cross over with others, sometimes run into another, by chance. But in the end of the day, there's one group trying to survive out there in very inhospitable places. But again, these people know where to find the right materials, all the ores from the mountains where they can go there. Dyes are a very important part of here, along with textiles. We'll talk about that. And the livestock they have. And of course, some ancient shory technologies and magic items. We can't forget those. So, while there isn't a lot of major history in this region, we can talk about the entire region and it in a larger sense. Some basics, if you will. So the Wall of Heaven is perhaps one of the most impressive natural wonders in all of Golarion. That's something to keep in mind. It's a mountain range that stretches from the Arctic Circle down to the equator, and it nearly divides the northern hemisphere of Golarion. Its smallest peaks are as high as the Five King Mountains, the tallest peak in Aveston. So yeah, the smallest peaks here equal to the highest peaks on another continent, with its tallest peaks going through the clouds way above there, so high enough that some say they stretch to the fabric of the universe, with spaces that connect to places like heaven, the plane of air, the netherworld, other places beyond, that some of these mountains can go so high they connect to them also. Think about our world, our planet, the tallest mountains in the world, the great ranges that are impressive. This is that, or even more. The wall, though, is inhospitable to humanoid life. Predatory beasts, monsters dominate the lower areas. Ancient dragons, divine servitors, powerful elementals will rule over the peaks of these mountains. Doesn't say there is not civilization in small pockets that have managed to find a way to survive. Places of the Lamjung Pass Monastery and other monasteries are homes to various people. The Lamjung Pass one is home to Iorian monks, and devotees of other faiths make pilgrims there each summer. So it's sort of like, yeah, they welcome others, and they're connecting high with the heavens and that which is beyond. If you think about a civilization that exists within the Wall of Heaven, it is the Ones, the Keepers. They aid travelers that cross the mountains if they are peaceful, and they move through these heights as easily as anybody would move through just a simple open field. They know the passes better than anybody else. They're perfect guides. But if you disrespect the nature of this place or them itself, you don't want to rule. Of course, this is just the wall. The Shanguang Desert, to the east. It stretches nearly the length of the mountain range. Basically, the wall, being this massive barrier, cuts off rain and wind coming in from the sea. So it creates this arid, tranquil landscape right on the other side of the mountain. The desert has been attempted to be explored over time and history, but there isn't a lot of natural resources. Roving monsters make it hard there, and there really hasn't been permanent settlements in the desert over its long history that anybody can map in. Empires that have tried to put the empire on the map, especially their map, well, it all ended the same way. Either massive failure, or the scouting party basically said, hey, there's nothing here worth it. How are you doing this? It is a perfect refugee if you want a place for refugees if you want to be outside of empires and lords. And the major people that have lived here for all their generations and for a long time, the nomadic Mutabi-Qi, basically, they understand Shanguang. And they will welcome outsiders, friendly ones. There's no borders, no government, and each tribe has their own laws. But they are also beholden to the desert and know, it better be friendly, If you want to mess with us, you can mess with us. But, we'll be friendly if you come in nicely. Basically, the true rulers of the desert, the Kaiju. They've been there for generations, for history. It's an open, vast landscape, and for creatures that want to be left alone, perfect. There are 3 current Kaiju that roam the sands and can be seen occasionally. Yjae, the Horned Thunder, the Slumbering I butchered this guy's name, Bezravnus, and the Centipede Queen, Zimbri. They've been rivals before. They don't really get along perfectly. But they avoid each other for the most part, and in certain circumstances are willing to fight together. And honestly speaking, what's worse than 1 Kaiju? 3. So, yeah, keep it in mind that they're a little bit rivals, a little bit allies, but they keep to themselves mostly. Just don't draw the ire of all 3 of them, or you've got a bigger problem than you've ever thought before. Yes. I love Kaiju. They're cool. Anyway, let's talk about this nice map here. This is the geography. This is the Shanguang here. And you can see where the Wall of Heaven is over on its one side there. If you live near the Wall of Heaven, within the desert, the swinging hot and cold, impressive. There are those that boast that the heat is greater than that of Osirian, and the cold kill and Iriseni. So the cold is cold, hot is hot. The desert sun scorches in the morning, and the night wind has wind sweeping in from the frozen tundras of the north like a winter's bloom. Salt flats cover this area, demanding respect for seasoned travelers. And false step on these stony crags that dot the east can easily claim a life. Yjae. Well, his thunderous wanderings, because he is a thunder beast, leave razor-sharp glass in his wake. So, yeah, thunder, lightning, hits the sand and desert and turns into glass shards that make things even more difficult to travel. If you are to live in this desert, traveling between the various oases that dot the landscape is the limit. So, weather, big reason to stay to the oases. It protects you to a degree. Monsters that prowl the wall and the desert are also pretty terrible things here. Certain creatures that come from the nether world and are only been seen there, kind of scream that there must be a portal here, and there are arcanists that believe it is somewhere in the mountains. The Mutabi-Qi have legends that say that the monsters were fewer in the desert before the time the Sky People came. We will talk about the shore before the end of the day. But yeah, they may have caused some problems. Nice and eastern border are marked with eerie whistling of Namordors, which are man-eating horrors who always seem to travel towards the fallen city. If you brave the mountains itself, there are secrets there. There's things like every 12 years, a woman of imperial blood may be chosen to climb the ruddy peaks of the Iron Mountains, where Celestial Dragon will grant her one wish, if you correctly guess which portal leads to heaven and which leads to hell. So on that year, though, the mountain passes are packed with women who claim to have imperial blood of some kind, whether real or imagined. And these princess possessions are basically kind of equivalent to a sports team for a lot of local tribes, that they'll have their favorite princess that's going up into the mountains to get there. There have been wishes granted, so, you know, it's rare, but with all this pomp, it does happen. So it is a thing. And of course, then there's Atlan Zun, the last pass to the north, which connects to the crown of the world, and to Hong Kong. So there are some Tian-Yae, another ancestry based in the desert, that set up shop nearby to provide travelers with needs for their journey, sometimes as guides. They can be less than scrupulous. You want to probably look for a legitimate guide who's going to basically charge you very steep and be very choosy about, choosing you. Basically, if they have to be convinced to be your guy and charge you a lot, they're probably more legit. And it's a dangerous journey, so, hey, all the more reason. And coin is important. Let's talk about one of the three main groups that live in Mutabi-Qi. Groups of humanoids, I should say. So these aren't just one group. There are dozens of nomadic tribes, and they populate Shanguang Desert. They are predominantly Team Law, but they aren't all Team. There are multiple ethnic groups that are basically unified by the cultural and practices they've developed over generations in the desert. So, yeah, that's the easiest way to say it is, yes, they do seem to originate from one of the Tian ethnicities, but it's not just that one. You can basically assume things about the Mutabi-Qi that wouldn't be correct. So each tribe has their own route they follow year to year. They'll make small adjustments as they need to, and it usually revolves around the resources they can find in the desert. They can get anything they are really good at getting stuff out of the harsh desert. They have domestic camels and sheep that provide a lot of clothing, food, fermented milk products as a very common staple for them. They wear loose-fitting clothes. The Mutabi-Qi don't really wear a lot of jewelry. Instead, they wear bright dyes in their clothes and stuff. Elaborate patterns into ceremonial clothing and tapestries that are very important. Dyes that are only found within the desert, and patterns that are very labor-intensive to make. So, yeah, with these special dyes that are only found here, and really hard to make textiles, which are a big part of your display for ceremonial, for pomp, these fetch a high price on the markets outside. There are those Mutabi-Qi that leave the nomadic lifestyle and settle in other places in Tian, and can find that their skills with weaving hadn't sought after. Big place. Now, if you go to the northern part of the desert, where it gets a little bit colder, they tend to wear some fur-lined coats and borrow a lot more from Hongoli fashion. They also tend to favor horses over camels. When it comes to trade with their neighbors, Lingshan and Kowlin, tax collectors from them try to extract payment, and they never have an easy time with the Mutabi-Qi. If they manage to find a tribe, they'll be met with curiously intricate scrolls asserting that they had very much did pay their taxes, and per arcane 70-year-old agreements. On the other hand, trade with Hongo is very tough. Basically, Lingshan and Kowlin want to basically bureaucracy them. Doesn't happen, or control them. Make them part of their kingdoms. Basically, meeting with the distant cousins from Hongol are parties and contests. Our egg flows, music plays, competitors prove their mettle, There could be some fiery words, but it's all in good fun. And when sometimes it isn't all in good fun, there's some contest to settle. Individual tribes within the desert give themselves a wide berth. They're competing for resources. But sometimes they do cross paths. Usually this is at curated oasis gardens that they're planning to. These are pockets of lush vegetation that are bred to survive on very little water. They have unique figs and pears, which are very popular amongst these. These communal gardens, between the various tribes that use each of them, is an important responsibility. This could be one tribe, this could be a couple tribes, depends on the situation for it. But it's important they maintain it. And damaging any one of these is a capital offense. If, in other respects, two or more tribes have their roots overlap, leaders basically have a contest to decide the matter. If they're more on the Hangul side of lineage, it's wrestling matches, archery. Others do things like having drumming competitions. Mutabi-Qi rarely go close to the wall. Monsters claim that route. But the thing is, there's some great stuff up there. Death worms tend to leave tunnels behind, dredging up minerals and ores from deep underground. So checking out one of their abandoned tunnel could get you a couple of bits of iron or some other rare ore that could make you a tool or weapon that you might need. Smoke shade essence can be purified, used for invisibility spells. Or, if you need to, used as a poison that's pretty dangerous to a lot of creatures. All those monsters that patrol the desert areas break poison, fight against it, and crush loon wings, or one of the more precious dyes that you can use for your textiles. Kaiju. I've mentioned them here now a few times, but some Mutabi-Qi have sort of symbiotic relationships with them. Basically, their ancestors discovered that Yjae, the Horned Thunder, can be calmed with music. It's a common practice to sing whenever the Kaiju is spotted in the distance, which is easy. It's very big. So now, and it's a big desert. So now when they have encounters, these have become regular enough that to bring Yjae great joy. He likes some good music and party, and the storms which follow Yjae become rain. You're in a desert. Water's precious. This could be a good thing for you. Get a supply of water. Your connection with it could bring prosperity. And, of course, Yorick has a propensity for dispatching evil. So, yeah. So sometimes there's a few Mutabi-Qi, uncommonly, that do worship Yorick as a patron deity. Their cooking is very Hangul in a lot of ways. They don't have a lot of dairy in comparison, so pork sog is a little bit rarer. But they use things like butter substitutes by other types of fats that they've gotten from hunted prey. Their dishes travel. They tend to wrap them in palm leaves. These palm leaves come from a lot of the oases, and they are very prized because they make for good transportation, and they're dried out for between trips. Valuable ore, mana produce, are traded often with spices from the south, and chefs like to brag of Mutabi-Qi that their dishes, they make all the dishes in the east and make them to go. And Arak, as I mentioned, is very high sought. Music is important. Drumming as the highest form of music. Basically, drumming is used to help tribes identify each other with their own distinctive rhythms and signatures. And these drumming can actually have signals that all the tribes know. That can be used for in case of emergencies. So one tribe could warn another of sickness or famine ahead before they even have to face meat to meat. Or meat face to face. Face meat to meat? Meat face to face. Did that. Said that a few times now. But yeah, basically, your drummer, which will kind of like help things, keep some music over things, will be able to tell other people what's going on at distance. When it comes to names, titles are more important than names when it comes to Mutabi-Qi. Your personal name is for your close friends and for government contacts and your intimate people. So that's when your personal name is used. Depending on the Mutabi-Qi tribe, depends on what your name and what culture originally comes from, but that kind of thing of that, the name being more important, is there. So everyone usually has a nickname that calls them from their childhood, from their adolescence. If someone uses your birth name, they better be someone that's deeply connected to you or intimate, or it's rude. Like your best friend could use your birth name, but they're your best friend. They're someone intimate with you, or your lover, or a family member. Otherwise, it's rude. So, and these names aren't as big as, like, someone that visits them and writes novels, like Strong Arms, those exist too, but there's also, like, Two-Step, Small Batar. People who change their identity, especially transgender people within the Mutabi-Qi, do exist. And if someone is going to change their identity, become someone different, become more what they want to be, transgender people or otherwise, there are ceremonies where you can get a new name and nickname. They do allow you to change these things for yourself, to more express who you are. And, it's a small community. If you want to be someone else, if you want to be more who you feel like you are, you can. Another thing here is curiosity that's prized amongst their people. Their folk hero, Kaiju, discovered secrets and used them to outwit and befriend his enemies. He rarely resorted to violence, and was known to use his drum to dazzle and distort. So the longest night of the year, the Mutabi-Qi gather around the fire and learn and exchange secrets that they've learned in his memory. When the children go to bed, they share secrets they learned of each other. And this could upset some people, listeners, but an elder will break down and figure stuff out. Alright. Mutabi-Qi isn't the only people. Shori have arrived in their city. They've also connected with the Mutabi-Qi and created the Tian-Yae. These are people of Shori and the Mutabi-Qi ancestry. Now, occasionally Tian-Yae is used to describe someone that has a mixed hereditary Grundian Tian ancestry. That's not quite true. It is Shori and Mutabi-Qi. Again, that's kind of like a generalization, which unfortunately happens in some. So they typically have darker skin and curlier hair than your average Mutabi-Qi. But this can also vary from person to person. Siblings could have different skin tones, hair textures, facial features. You basically, if you spend time around Tian-Yae, you can try to extrapolate the entire culture from a single tribe. It's not going to work. Basically, Tian-Yae say that no two stars are alike, no matter how they might seem from a distance. So the Shori city of Yjae, which we'll talk about soon, crashed into the wall of heaven. Their leaders decreed that survival must be kept a secret. They basically feared the inhabitants of this land in TNZ went with technology, and they were too weak to defend themselves. They were isolated. But some of the Shori people basically began seeing saving the city as a doomed venture. At first, when they observed the Mutabi-Qi, they were fearful. But they began to understand what they saw. Resourceful, community-driven people who skewed the imperialistic mindset that had led the Shori people's ancestor to ruin. So, centuries ago, several Shori families abandoned Yjae and formed alliance with the 1,000-song tribes at first in the Mutabi-Qi. That was the first group they connected with. Since then, more families have joined their cousins and left Yjae. There are those Shori that were the Mutabi-Qi wouldn't accept them of their own merits, so they brought old Yjae technology. The generations have taught one another how to maintain it, and how to repurpose it for use in the harsh desert climate. So, over time, some of this has been explained away as work of the gods, but there are plenty of Tian-Yae that remember well their origin. There are also inquisitive Tian-Yae, who've left the desert to search for even more wonders. Basically, that wanted to leave behind the old, and see more, and be impressed by this world that we're now kind of trapped in, has led them more and more to travel. Perhaps more than the Mutabi-Qi. In a lot of ways. Again, Mutabi-Qi. It's not to say that there aren't those Mutabi-Qi that leave the desert. There are, but perhaps more Tian-Yae do. So, a Tian-Yae person who considers them part of the Mutabi-Qi tribe of Warning. But an interesting thing about them is they wear their Shori heritage proudly. Gold rings, necklaces, and other pieces of jewelry are passed down between family members as a sign of their lineage. They put parts of Gurundi fashion into their aesthetics and their crafts, use Mwangi slang, use Gurundi instruments. Gurundi drumming is a big one. Remember, drumming is pretty big here, but they also use things like thumb harps, leather flutes that have stood the test of time. So Shori continue to leave the city in smaller numbers over the generations. There's a divide between newly arrived Shori and the Tian-Yae, especially the ones that are a lot more generations removed from Yjae. Tian-Yae culture fusions can be jarring to Shori, because it's not just like this is a completely different culture. This is our culture and another combined. And sometimes the Shori can seem condescending, but again, there's no real animosity, and the thing is, the Shori and the Mutabi-Qi, that could be another problem. These are newly arrived, and the Tian-Yae have been arbiters, whether they like it or not. They tend to not want to be there, not really happy about the role, but it's kind of expected of them almost, so they do it. Practicing still doesn't mean you're always inclined to use it. Not all Tian-Yae, though, join Mutabi-Qi tribes. With dual heritages, sometimes they form their own groups. So these smaller Tian-Yae tribes carry on a blended tradition that they both cherish, and they shed a lot of traditions that might be restricted. Basically, strict superstitions, ideas around things like marriage are often first to go in relationships. Hey, you're a smaller group, be with whoever you're going to be with, that kind of thing. And so, yes, but that's only a small thing. If it's a difficult tradition from either of your two cultures as you're blending these two together, get rid of it. They have rituals that actually bind them together as a family when they form. They basically take strands of their hair, braid them together, and basically create this braid that they will put the guts aside their tribe's banner. And then soaking both in the wind and storm. And the banner is also important. You have common motifs of geometric patterns, desert creatures, stars, celestial bodies. Tian-Yae sometimes have affinity for air magic. Hey, the Shori people and their aeromancy. I haven't really talked a lot about that. They were master aeromancers. See my Shori people, my Shori empire video. We'll talk a little bit about it. But yes, they have an affinity for air magic, so descendants of them also sometimes have it. This usually manifests with dedicated study in spellcraft, but in some cases they can be born with special abilities. Shori parents might try to hide this abilities out of fear that it can lead to hubris and misfortune, something that was the downfall of their ancestors, who mastered these great magics and then fell. But most Tian-Yae view them as a sign of their prosperity. The Tian-Yae have different ties to their own. They share some superstitions about the weather. Rain on the clear skies at bad omens, snow even worse. And some keep these beliefs to simple rituals. Others take it scientifically. In this land, where knowing the weather and knowing whether to make camp on a freezing night or press on till morning could actually lead between the difference between life and death is pretty important. So Tian-Yae forecasters have turned this scientific side of things are actually really trusted in this. Some Tian-Yae take on familiars and companions, and they prize birds, especially falcons, for hunting companions and scouts. They don't just go out and grab them. They only accept birds that come to them. Basically, if you see the same bird 3 times, then they might consider buying it. When it comes to religion, here's where the worship of Desna comes in. They prefer the guiding star, though they will sometimes worship some of the other deities favored by the Mutabi-Qi or Tian gods. So, we do have to talk about the legend of the Flying City, because, sure, you get some cousins that come down from that thing, but it is, to them, just a legend. Of a flying city caught in a never-ending war, a grandmother's fairy tale. Some venture to the mountain to find this city. Most returning with tales of their adventures from the mountains, and some never make it back. Families will kind of think of, they just reached the lost city. Whether they did or not is... So I talk about them wanting to travel, having that sense of wonder. And this wanderlust can occur in their follies. It's not the kind of thing like the calling from a changeling to go find their mothers. But it is a condition that the Tian-Yae will announce and say that they plan to walk the skies. Basically, they get a wanderlust to travel to see something about their mixed heritage and the origin of their families. That wants them to travel and see more, understand more. When the rest of their clan know what's going on, they're given a number of gifts. blessings to go on. Food, tools, weapons, keepsakes. Things that are treasured for their adventure. Yjae. In the Age of Destiny, many, many years ago, thousands of years ago, the Shori Empire was one of the largest and most powerful in existence. They had powerful magic and technology. They conquered the sky in their flying cities. At the height of the power, the spawns of Robovin, ancient enemies from before they took to the sky, began to take them down, along with many of their own hubris. This combination of factors led to the collapse of their empire. Their cities were destroyed and brought low. Kaiju wanted to escape the fate of their king, of the creatures that may, and old enemies that may hunt them, of the internal divisions and wars and other things that caused the rest to fall. So they headed east. Reached the Emerald Ocean. Didn't want to turn back. Kept going. Reached the Wall of Heaven. Now the lowest peaks of the Wall of Heaven reached higher than their city could travel. But they sought a passage. A magic storm occurred, and they crashed in the rocks. Thousands were killed, and their engines inoperable. This last great Shori city is basically a ruin with some people inhabiting it. It floats within the wind above the desert. It used to be divided into more districts, but only 3 remain. The western quarter, which is partially destroyed, is embedded in a cursed mountain. And engulfed in a constant storm of umbral energy, with a basically malfunctioning aeromancy engines. The Knight Oni, known as the Avalanche King, rules here with his army of Oni, and basically wishes to conquer the entire city. And if it wasn't for the powerful wards that remain on the last 2 districts, he would. And those wards are ever weakening. So the eastern half falls under the protection of the immortal Sky Masters. Powerful immortal mages, spellcasters, a triumvirate of them, that were put in place to rule Shori cities. The Sky Masters from the old days still rule here. With under them, people in Yjae still lead relatively normal lives. The gardens provide enough food to go around barely. Some expeditions to the mountains are made to get some required material to stock up on supplies, but otherwise, the city works to keep and maintain it. A lot of the complex operations, though, inoperable. No longer can be maintained. Experts are lost, either to conflict or those that choose to abandon the city, and knowledge is lost. So, what little remains that can be maintained of the ancient technologies and magics is. Beyond that is the battlefield. Shori warriors patrol the barrow, maintaining the wards, and should an Oni find a way to bypass it, hunt them down. The clashes between the Avalanche King and the Sky Master Mutabi-Qi are legendary, and neither of them has claimed the other's life. So the 3 Sky Masters of Yjae are Loka the Radiant, Mutabi the Burning, and Yjae the Tempest. Loka is the eldest of them. Though his age doesn't betray him at all in his form, he's tall, muscular, sculpted, he has rigorous exercise and meditation. He only wears a white loincloth and ivory mask and gauntlets. He considers himself the moral leader of Shori, but he does have a lack of decisive action that has been of great discontent for his people. He's the moral leader, but he's not very action-heavy. Mutabi the Burning is the general of Yjae's armies. He still believes that martial victory over the Avalanche King is vital. Probably the only one. His true appearance is a mystery to all but the other Sky Masters, because his face and most of his torso are permanently wrenched in bright blue flames. His martial prowess, unparalleled. His aeromancy, terrible. He's probably one of the worst aeromancers, Sky Masters there was, but really good at fighting. Yjae the Tempest, on the other hand, well, she's kind of that opposite. She's probably the most skilled wizard in all of Yjae. But she dedicates her energies to basically maintaining the city and keeping it afloat. She powers through surviving spells and artifacts by herself. The steeds are weakened and exhausted, and so she doesn't really make a lot of public appearances, as she's constantly trying to keep the magic of this place going, so what remains in the city continues to float, continues to protect its citizens. That's what's left of the great Shori Empire. A floating ruin and a few people within it. Let's talk about the Kaiju. The true rulers of Shanguang. As the Shori are, indeed in a way, powerful, they have an ancient giant floating city. Granted, it's a pile of crap at this point in time in ruins of the thousands of years that's been falling apart and infested halfway by Oni, but maybe a third. And the mountains, of course, ruled over by various things, but the desert. The Kaiju, king monsters. These powerful creatures that are as inevitable as the dawn. There are outsiders that arrive to attack the Kaiju, strike it down, get famous, claim great magics or things from its corpse. They're welcome, given advice not to do it, warned, and then sent off with a smile when they go to their certain deaths. Oh, you really don't want to do that. No. Well, it was nice meeting you. Never see you again. Of the three that roam the desert, Yjae, the Horned Thunder, is garnered the most fondness. Children can play with figurines of his image. On a clear day, with clever observation, you could spot his form from anywhere in the desert. That flat, he's that big, and he also has giant storms around him. You know, if you see the storm sound and a little lead of his massive Jane horde, his horn dares to rake the skies themselves, and he's second highest only to the wall itself. Yeah, really big monster. Legend says whoever sends his horn gains an affinity for thunder. Only musicians have succeeded. None other. Basically, his fondness of music is as storms are to him. Centuries ago, the drummer, I'm going to butcher this name, Yjae Shizer, discovered that if you play her drums with the time of Yorick's step, she could distract him from his rampage. She played for 2 days, according to legend, and 2 nights. And after non-stop rest, basically allowed her clan to find safety. After those 3 days, she returned with white hair and white eyes, and claimed that Yorick himself allowed her to climb his horn. This tale of bravery and dedication has spread throughout the desert, and this is why musicians are respected and integral in Mutabi-Qi society, and especially drummers! While Yorick's coming is foretold by his thunder, his footsteps, Paizovarus' attacks are hailed in by the incoming Inferno Star, a comet which appears every 273 years. Hey, a comet appears! The coming of the great three-tailed scorpion as it emerges from his fiery subterranean lair. Bathed in eerie flame, he heads straight for a single nearby summit. After raising no less than 2/3 of the target area, he returns to a slumber. He's never deviated in his cycle from the centuries in the desert. These are called the Inferno years of his awakening, when the Mutabi-Qi and settlements do everything they can to draw his attention away from them, but unlike Yjae, he doesn't lose his sway. Why is he tied to this comet? It's mysterious. No one really knows. There's some that claims when he sees it, he remembers and is homesick for the ancient red world. And that despair turns to rage. Others claim that he strikes only those who have dabbled with the netherworld magics. Shadow creatures do tend to give the ruins of these settlements wide berth. There are those that also say that if he misses a year's rampage, a tear will open the wall of heaven. The most mysterious and oldest of all the Kaiju in the Shanguang Desert is Zimbri, the Coiling Death, the great centipede queen herself. Rarely seen. A lot of Mutabi-Qi creation myths actually deal around with her. Basically, if you ever go to the sprawling darklands between Tian-Xia, the massive tunnels and areas there might lead credence to a story and legend that she basically created these. Basically, legend is that she wore herself exhausted creating them, and now wakes only when her territory is threatened. The memories of her last rampage survive only in stories of the Great Kaiju. That'll have to be another day. We'll talk about the Great Kaiju. But those tales say that the Kaiju that threaten her now, well, they serve as bones to reinforce her walls of her tunnels. Venom is a cure. Careless exposure can kill. That's what the Mutabi-Qi need. So if you can manage to get some of her venom and gather it, there are great tunnels and hiding places. It would be a very powerful thing. Used properly, powerful cure, and properly, true death. A Taldan lord sent an expedition for a vial of the substance, and, well, he and his coterie died hard, howling in their beds as centipede devoured their flesh. Didn't use it well. There are foreigners that have called for Zimbria's execution, but none dare attack her, particularly. Because they have to get through Yorick first. Basically, the stories say that Yorick would come to Zimbria's aid, should she be threatened. Because Zimbria once hit. Again, what's worse than one kaiju? Multiple kaiju! Now, there are a few other settlements we can talk about before we end today. Just a few. In Shanguang itself, other than Yjae, there's 1,000 songs. We don't know a lot about that one. We know more by name. In the Wall of Heaven, there is more than just the Lamjung Pass Monastery, the Dak-Cha Monastery, the Rai Shou Monastery, or other major monasteries in those regions. Similarly to Lamjung Pass one, the Dak-Cha one being enveloped in vast waterfall, basically about 2,000 people. Zhuqiu is an actual settlement in there, a town of nearly 3,000 people, probably the largest settlement in the Wall of Heaven. Not really a big place. It's a place inhospitable to outsiders. But if you needed to find some kind of settlement, the Dragon Empire's Gazetteer has good maps and small settlements. But, yeah. There you go. There's Shanguang and the Wall of Heaven. A great geographical feature, a great mountain range, and the desert creeks. A land ruled by Kaiju down below, and great celestials, elementals, and creatures from strange places, ancient dragons in the mountains above. Humanoids, mortals, bow to these things. Whether or not it's places that have religious importance, monasteries and the wall itself, or the wandering nomads in the desert. Of course, we have great wonders. The Kaiju themselves are one. The ancient floating city of Yjae, a bastion of remnants of an ancient empire that once existed thousands upon thousands of years ago. A little bit of hint of something that was once great. But its people, its blood, now spread out into the desert itself. We now have more than just the Mutabi-Qi, Tian-Yae. New cultures. And some of these people travel far from their home. Lose the way of nomads. The Tian-Yae who travel the world to see more. Leave their home behind. To maybe hope to one day travel to some place. Head to Rund itself. Learn about the ancient culture that once existed there that your ancestors came from. That'd be interesting. Nonetheless, Shanguang, Wall of Heaven, are incredibly interesting geographic features and locations. Ones that tell amazing stories. Maybe some of the most amazing in all Tian. I mean, giant kaiju are pretty awesome. But that'll be it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Man, I had to record this twice, so hopefully this time we're all good, no issues. Remember to check out all my other stuff, whether it's over on my YouTube or Twitch side of things. YouTube side, that's all my tabletop stuff ends up over there. Twitch side's where I record things live. I have live plays of TTRPGs. I have discussing tabletop Saturday at 6. And also do some gaming, sometimes on my own, sometimes with friends. It's some variety. So that's a good place to hang out and chat too. If you want to, like, maybe talk tabletop, talk everything else. Just gonna be there. Updates on schedules, what's going on, cat pics, all that kind of stuff goes up on my social media. That's my Discord, Blue Sky, X/Twitter. That's the order of operations. Anyway, I'm getting going. I got some more stuff to do. I'm gonna go check out, hang out with Twitch and stuff like that. But, you know, until the next time we talk about Pathfinder, another TTRPG, we dive into Tian Xia or somewhere else in the world. Maybe learn about some Kaiju. I bid you all out there a deep and wonderful farewell.